everything is just taken from you, and you're handcuffed and led downstairs in under the court cells waiting to be transported, and I didn't even know where I was going to be taken.
I remember sitting there and it was as if the blood in my body like started reversing, but it's like you're not within your own body kind of thing, and you just have this huge amount of fear just come over you. I think it was just realising the seriousness of what had happened.
Right now in Australia, more women than ever are finding themselves behind bars. We've seen the number of women in our prison system go from just under 3,000 in 2022 to almost 3,500 last year. Experts say that this is a trend caused by a combination of the lingering effects of COVID and the cost of living crisis, which has made people more desperate than ever.
I'll never forget when my barrister said, like, this is, not good, and basically the only option will be for you to get a custodial sentence.
Did you have any sort of idea beforehand about what it would be like going to a women's prison?
Absolutely none, other than like what you would watch on TV, which is so unrealistic of what it actually is like.
In an inmate transport truck, and I still, every time I see them, I just freeze, because it was such a traumatic experience, not knowing where you're taken. And I remember when we pulled up, I said to the officer, "Where am I?" And it was Silverwater Women's. My very first experience there was taken into a room with a female officer, and she said, "Have you been strip searched before?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, you better get used to it." And I tell you what, you never get used to it, ever.
When women are put in jail for the first time, it's scary enough, but most say the same thing. The experience of getting out is often worse than their time behind bars.
So it can just be this constant, I guess, these barriers that just kind of are put up in front of people who are trying to move forward. When you have left prison, you're trying to figure out, I guess, your life again, and how that looks, and navigating that, and trying to, I guess, like, find your identity, and you're in such a vulnerable position. It's exciting, but it's also really scary, because there's all these things that you've got to try and do to look after yourself, and I guess try and set your life back up, which doesn't happen overnight. When I got home, I'd opened a bank account with a bank that I'd previously been with, and they let me open the account, but when I had money deposited into it, it was frozen. So I'd had my accounts frozen from them previously, but I didn't think, because they had court orders on them, I didn't think a new one would be a part of that, but it was. So if I didn't have access to those funds through my family, then I would have lost that straight away, and you're trying to battle this huge bank that, the person on the other phone doesn't really understand the severity of what's just happened. So yeah, there was definitely like financial issues, and even for me are still ongoing. It absolutely doesn't surprise me that rates are going up.
What I've noticed in speaking to a lot of my female clients and some other women that advocate for women in the justice system, the common theme happens to be that they come out and there's a stigma attached to them for being female offenders. It's hard financially to get a job. It's hard financially to get a loan. Banks aren't prepared to loan female offenders money to get ahead, because of the trust issues and the conviction. Hard to get rentals, accommodation, housing, again, because the credit, like as in the rating. And then relationships break down. So they come out and it's quite lonely and isolating as well. So these conditions are what also influence women to then reoffend, or just some unfortunately also commit suicide, because it's just they're just so lonely and helpless. There's a real stigma attached to, well, why would this woman have done it? She must be deviant. She's calculated, she's manipulative, or she's unhinged. That's sort of the words that get attached to female offenders.
Another huge part of this puzzle is domestic violence. More than 85% of women in custody have had a history of either domestic violence or sexual violence. And although we as a society are getting better at understanding domestic violence, it seems that empathy hasn't really extended to those with a record. After their sentence is up, some women in custody are even left with an impossible choice: reoffend or return home to their abuser.
What was the stories that you were hearing from the other women in the jail? Why were they there and what was their background?
A lot of domestic violence stories, coercion, coercive control stories, having been with a partner where they felt they couldn't not do something for fear of that violence continuing. There was a woman who would return home to a violent partner who gambled, and if she didn't bring home more money, he'd become violent with her. Things like that you don't hear. Again, you don't hear those stories. You see people in community see the record, or an employer sees the record, and there's an automatic, no, we can't employ this person because they've returned a positive record check, without understanding the why.